Joining us to discuss the president's push to deal with crime in D.C. is Mike Leon, NTD News contributor and the host of the Can We Please Talk podcast, and National Guard veteran and retired Colonel Josh McConkey. Good to see you both today. Thanks so much for coming on. Let's start with the impact of the president's takeover of D.C. police and sending in the National Guard. The White House says 850 police officers were surged across the city Monday ahead of the National Guard's arrival, and they made nearly 24 arrests. So just to begin with, Mike, what kind of message does this send?
Yeah, well, first off, good to see you, Steph. Tough act to follow, right, with the president's presser right after this and us coming on board. But what message does it send? I mean, again, the National Guard has only been summoned 7 times in history, now 9 over the last 2 times that President Trump has done this in L.A. and D.C. I don't think it sends that great of a message, especially since we haven't seen any type of protest to the level of what happened in L.A. in Washington, D.C. Crime statistics, according to D.C. data, has shown that violent crime is down 26% year over year, including President Trump back in May of this year saying how D.C. crime has gone down 50%. Those are his words, not mine. So if we're taking the president at face value from his comments back in May, this move is not warranted and justified. Now, 2 things can be true at the same time, right? He has the ability to do this. It's within his legal authority to do this. They said that they're going to do this for 30 days. Maybe there's an extension. Mario Bowser, the mayor there, has also said that she looks forward to at least the added help to clean up the streets. But for something that Janine Pirro said in the package before we came on that I want to take umbrage with is like, I don't care why they commit crimes. She's coming at it from the angle of like, now I have to prosecute these people. We should look at why people commit crimes, because that's the root cause of this. If we truly want to clean up streets and we empower people to not commit crimes, where the majority of people that do commit crimes is with somebody that they know with respect to homicides, or whether it be robberies because of financial issues and struggles that they're going through, we should be tackling that issue as well so we can help reduce the crime rate. So again, a lot to digest with this story, Steph, within his purview to do this. I don't know if it's truly warranted or if this DC is in this huge uprise that the president is claiming.
Yeah, on this point, because it has been disputed across all networks, or at least presented as disputed facts here about how much crime there is in D.C. And I just want to note that the White House published graphics showing that the city's homicide rate was 27.54 per 100,000 in 2024, and they compared it to a homicide rate of 15.1 per 100,000 in Bogota, Colombia during that same period, homicide rate of 10.6 per 100,000 in Mexico City. So they're trying to push back against what they're calling disinformation here. Of course, I do believe that the decrease in crime rates is correct, but they're comparing it to the hard numbers as well. I would like to turn to you, Dr. McConkey, for your response, but also your experience as a National Guard. DC Guard members also have the authority to make arrests at this time, but they're mostly playing a supportive role here. Does that nuance impact the way that their presence will be received by locals and, say, prospective criminals?
Well, first off, I think the important thing to remember is that these are friends. These are neighbors from right here in Washington, D.C. So this isn't a foreign occupying force. These are your friends and neighbors. So them having the ability to just, if this were happening in my state of North Carolina, I'd be the first one up to volunteer for this type of activity. This is what they train for. This is why they join the National Guard, to contribute to their community. And I think this is a win-win for everybody. Washington, D.C. gets free manpower, and then we get to address the crime issues here in Washington, D.C.
Okay, and staying with you, Dr. McConkey, Hegseth told Fox's Laura Ingraham about the National Guard, saying that they can help somebody interdict, temporarily detain, like they did in Los Angeles, and hand over to law enforcement. But legally, where is the line of their authority?
So specifically with policing duties, there's a Posse Comitatus Act that delineates that they do not have the ability to do policing duties when on federal status. Had they still remained in a Title 32 status, and then other states have a state active duty, they would have those powers. But when they're under Title 10, they do not have that ability. But what they will do is they then free up local law enforcement doing other duties, allowing them to get out there. And then, of course, the other federal services with FBI and DEA do have those powers.
This episode of Can We Please Talk is presented by our friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Delicious tasting coffee since 2009. They've been our proud sponsor. You see the promo code there. Look at this. They sent me this beautiful kit right here. Listen to that. Listen to that seal coming out, right? What's in it? Environmentally safe, compostable K-Pods. I love the dark Mexican blend. You can go to their website right now, take the quiz. That quiz is going to put you with a flavor profile. Listen to that sound of the coffee that you're going to be matched up with. Go to freshroastedcoffee.com. Click the link right now in our show notes. You can see it right there. Click that link. It's going to take you to the site. When you get to checkout, use our promo code, Can We Please Get 20? All one word, Can We Please Get 20, 20. You're going to get 20% off your first purchase. Head to freshroastedcoffee.com, our official sponsor of the Can We Please Talk podcast.
Okay, and Mike, as with the National Guard sent to LA, which we're now seeing in the courts, do you expect this action in D.C. to go to the courts? And what do you make of Mayor Muriel Bowser's somewhat measured response so far? You've mentioned her in there already.
Yeah, somebody that I've actually interviewed, Steph, and years ago, but not for obviously what's happening in D.C. First off, Dr. McConkey, thank you for your service and things like that. And I think that mentality is right, that police should recognize people from their community that are helping with respect to this. So I do appreciate that attitude. I truly, truly, truly do. But, as she mentioned, as Muriel Bowser mentioned, at first she started with a little bit of like, this is unwarranted. And then she realizes that her authority is usurped with respect to this because this is within the president's authority to do this. And I do agree with what Dr. McConkey was saying about like, if it's truly in a supportive role and if there is a timestamp date of when this will all end, that's fine. But my thing is that, again, the times in history that the National Guard has been summoned there's always been an event that has kind of, incited this, for lack of a better term. And there's a reason why this has been called, or it's a municipality that lacks the infrastructure and resources to handle this on its own. Steph, you and I talked about the LA one. LA has over 8,500 or so police officers with respect to all the municipalities across California and Los Angeles and Southern California, where they can handle large gatherings of folks, as they have for years, except in 1992 when the LA riots happened and the National Guard had to be summoned. Those are occasions when the National Guard needs to be summoned. If we're going to cherry pick every instance of every American city that we're going to have, high crime rates in, and the president's going to, intervene with respect to the National Guard, it's not sustainable. It's not feasible, right? Of the top 10 most dangerous cities, according to U.S. News and World Report, Washington, D.C. isn't on that list. It's not even in the top 15. Right. So like and 7 of those are in Louisiana. 4 of those, of those cities are in Louisiana. Is the president going to intercede there? So that's where I'm coming at it from respect to this angle. I truly do want, to solve crime. We've got to solve root causes of crime. We have to put police in position to succeed, but we also have to give mental health services and other folks that can tackle these issues as to why crime is running rampant if it is in Washington, D.C. But again, according to the president's own words in May, it was down. So I think the action and whether or not he's legally justified to do this stuff, I don't know if that'll play out in courts, because speaking to reporters and federal prosecutors in D.C., they have all said that Muriel Bowser may not challenge this because she knows her authority has been usurped with respect to this, and that the president can declare a national emergency, which you just heard him say in the presser before we jumped on.
Yeah, and you make an interesting point about the choice of the specific city. It is an iconic city, and which is one of the aspects President Trump has referred to as he speaks about his actions there, wanting the nation's capital to shine, as in some sense. But Dr. McConkey, before they're sent to D.C. streets, service members will reportedly receive additional training on de-escalation tactics and rules for the use of force. That's according to defense officials. What would you expect that training to look like, and how might it impact their interaction with the community?
So defense support of civil authorities is one of the big missions of the National Guard. So we do receive that training throughout our careers, and probably getting some refresher training anytime you're dealing with the civilian population. It's much different than being in a combat zone, and even this is much different than a natural disaster. So just anytime you're working with people, there's very unique, like with this homeless population, I'm an emergency physician, the social issues, the mental health issues that I deal with every day in the emergency department, they are now going to be exposed to this. So just having a little bit more education and bringing them up to speed on dealing with some of those social issues is probably the biggest part of the training.
All right. And on this point of potential points of conflict within the community, Mike, there's been some fear around how much of a show of force is being adopted here. We've already seen some protests against the president's moves. So do you anticipate these protests to escalate further?
Well, I mean, if LA is any indicator, obviously, we saw the inklings of protests that started to happen. And then obviously when the National Guard announcement started, we saw some more, obviously protests that took place over the weekend, and then things start to kind of dispel and calm down. But something that Dr. McConkey said there that's really sticking with me is again, the training aspect of this, of National Guard folks dealing with civilian population versus dealing with folks in a combat zone. There's two different things. And my hope is that, and again, I'm glad that he's on this panel explaining that, because if there is training that goes into this, and there is, National Guard folks that, we're explaining, hey, we're in a truly supportive role here. It's not meant to be agitative. It's not meant to, cause excited delirium is a common phrase that's thrown out there with respect to when police are actually engaging with folks or have them under arrest and things like that and exacerbate the situation. You're here to de-escalate things. You're here to act in a supportive role. If we truly get that on its face value, Steph, then yes, I agree with Dr. McConkey that all of us should be in agreement with this, that this is truly to help Washington, D.C. But again, not sustainable, not scalable for all these other cities. Where does it end, right? And again, this is not even the political game of this, but if a Democratic administration had done this, what would be the level of ire back and forth with this? So my hope is that, like Dr. McConkey said, that there is a true training and exercise that's happening here with respect to National Guard folks. You're in a supportive role. You're acting as a de-escalator with respect to measures. And hopefully that, the citizens there, after a couple of weeks of dealing with this, truly understand that this is not meant to be agitation, and we don't see anything break out with respect to violence or protests that lead to violence, Steph. That's my hope. Hey, everybody, Mike Leon from the Can We Please Talk podcast. Thank you so much for watching this clip. Do me a favor, hit subscribe. Gonna get more content from us over at Can We Please Talk.